The family meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. on Sunday. My sister Emily had sent the calendar invitation 3 weeks earlier. Important family discussion, all must attend. The subject line made it sound official, like we were shareholders in a corporation rather than relatives bound by blood and mutual disappointment. I accepted the invitation without comment, just like I'd accepted every other summons over the past decade. Show up. Endure the lecture. Leave unchanged. Now I sat in my parents' living room in Evanston, Illinois, watching Mom arrange cookies on a plate she'd bought specifically for these occasions. Blue porcelain with gold trim, the kind of thing that screamed formal family business. Dad sat in his leather armchair, the same one he'd occupied for 30 years, positioned like a throne at the head of the room. Emily arrived exactly on time, her 3-year-old daughter trailing behind her. My older brother David showed up 10 minutes late, apologizing profusely as always, his suit still crisp from whatever corporate office he'd just left. Now that we're all here, Dad began, clearing his throat with that particular sound that meant business, we need to discuss Maya. All eyes turned to me. I was 32 years old and this was my life. Sitting in my childhood home while my family discussed my failures like I was a problem to be solved. Your mother and I have been talking, Dad continued, and we're concerned about your trajectory. Trajectory, I repeated quietly. Your career path, Mom clarified as if I didn't understand the word. Or lack thereof. Emily jumped in, her voice taking on that sympathetic tone she used when she thought she was being helpful. Maya, we're not attacking you. We love you. But you have to admit the pattern is concerning. What pattern? David pulled out his phone, scrolling through what I could only assume were notes he'd prepared. My family loved data. Let's see. You dropped out of Northwestern after 2 years. I left to start my first company, I said. Which failed within 18 months, he continued, not acknowledging my correction. Then you tried that e-commerce thing. That made $240,000 in revenue the first year. Which you abandoned after 2 years. Then there was the consulting business. Which I still run. If you can call it that. Maya, you're 32 years old. Emily's a hospital administrator. David's a senior vice president at a Fortune 500 company. What are you? I looked at him steadily. A business owner. Dad made a sound somewhere between a cough and a laugh. Business owner. That's what you call someone with a laptop and a dream, Maya. That's not a real career. I have clients, I said calmly. Revenue. Employees. How many employees? Mom asked. 83. The number hung in the air for a moment before Emily spoke. Maya, that can't be right. Last time we talked you said you worked from home. I do work from home. My team is distributed across 7 countries. 7 countries, Dad repeated, his tone making it clear he thought I was exaggerating or delusional or both. And what exactly does this team do? We provide strategic growth consulting for tech startups. Market analysis, investor relations, scaling strategies. David leaned back, crossing his arms. Okay, let's talk numbers then. What's your annual revenue? I hesitated. Not because I didn't know, I knew exactly. But because I'd learned years ago that telling them the truth only made things worse. It's adequate, I said. Adequate, Mom repeated. Honey, adequate doesn't cut it anymore. You're in your 30s. You should be thinking about retirement accounts, property ownership, stability. Instead, you're still playing entrepreneur with these little projects. They're not little projects. Then prove it, Dad challenged. Show us tax returns. Show us business registration. Show us something that proves this is real and not just you burning through savings while pretending to be successful. I felt the familiar tightness in my chest. Not anger, not hurt, just the exhausting weight of being fundamentally misunderstood by the people who were supposed to know you best. I don't need to prove anything, I said quietly. That's the problem right there, Emily said, leaning forward with that earnest expression she'd perfected. You're defensive. We're trying to help you and you're shutting us out. I'm not defensive. I'm just tired of having the same conversation over and over. Because you refuse to listen. Dad's voice rose slightly. We have experience, Maya. Real-world experience in real careers. David's been with his company for 12 years. Emily runs an entire hospital department. Your mother and I both had stable, respected careers. We know what success looks like and this, he gestured vaguely at me, isn't it? What your father's trying to say, Mom interjected, her voice gentler but no less cutting, is that we're worried about you. You're brilliant, Maya. You always have been. But brilliance without direction is just wasted potential. I have direction. Do you? Because from where we're sitting, it looks like you jump from one failed venture to another, never committing, never building anything lasting. David cleared his throat. Actually, I have an opportunity that might interest you. My company's hiring for mid-level project managers. The pay's good, $85,000 base plus benefits. I could put in a word, get you an interview. I appreciate that, but I'm not interested. See? Dad threw up his hands. This is exactly what we're talking about. You're offered a real job with real security and you turn it down because of pride. It's not pride. Then what is it? What are you holding out for? Do you think some miracle is going to happen? That you'll wake up one day and suddenly be Mark Zuckerberg? I'm not trying to be anyone except myself. Mom set down her coffee cup with a delicate clink. Maya, we asked you here today because we've made a decision. Your father and I have been supporting you financially for years. You haven't supported me financially since I was 24, I interrupted. We co-signed your apartment lease, she continued. We pay for your health insurance. We've bailed you out of credit card debt twice. That was 6 years ago. The point is, Dad said firmly, we're cutting you off. Completely. No more safety net. You're 32 years old and it's time you learned what the real world is like. The room went silent except for the ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner. Okay, I said simply. They seemed surprised by my lack of resistance. Okay. Emily repeated. That's it. What do you want me to say? You've made your decision. I respect it. Don't you understand what this means? Mom asked, her voice rising with concern. Without our support you'll have to get a real job, I know. That's what you're hoping for. I stood up, smoothing my jeans. Is there anything else you wanted to discuss? Maya, don't be like this, David said. We're not the enemy here. I never said you were. Then why are you leaving? Because there's no point in continuing this conversation. You've decided who I am and what I'm capable of. Nothing I say will change your minds. Dad stood as well, his face reddening. You know what your problem is, Maya? You're arrogant. You think you're smarter than everyone else, that you see opportunities we can't see. But you're not special. You're just stubborn and unrealistic, and one day you're going to wake up 40 years old with nothing to show for it except a string of failures. I picked up my bag, my movements calm and deliberate. Thank you for your concern. Maya, please, Mom said, standing now too. We're doing this because we love you. Can't you see that? I see that you love me. I also see that you don't believe in me. Those two things can coexist. Emily tried one more time. If you would just listen to reason. I have listened. For 10 years I've listened. And I'm tired. I walked to the door and they followed, their voices overlapping. You're making a mistake. You're throwing your life away. One day you'll understand we were right. I turned at the threshold, looking at them one more time. My father with his certainty and his rules. My mother with her worry and her disappointment. My siblings with their conventional success and their pity. I hope you all have a good evening, I said, and walked out into the cool September air. The drive back to my apartment in Lincoln Park took 20 minutes. 20 minutes of silence where I didn't cry or rage or feel much of anything except a dull, familiar ache. They didn't know. They couldn't know. Last month, my company had closed a consulting contract with 3 simultaneous Fortune 100 companies, $47 million in combined revenue. The month before that, we'd been approached by a venture capital firm about acquisition opportunities. 2 weeks ago, Forbes had contacted me about their annual Most Influential Entrepreneurs Under 40 feature. The interview had lasted 3 hours. The photographer had taken over 200 shots. They'd fact-checked every claim, verified every number, spoken with my clients and my team. The feature was publishing tomorrow. I'd known for 6 weeks that I was going to be on the cover. Forbes' youngest featured consultant. The woman revolutionizing tech growth strategy. They were calling me the secret weapon behind Silicon Valley's biggest successes. And I hadn't told my family any of it. Not because I was waiting for the right moment. Not because I wanted to surprise them. But because I knew they wouldn't believe me until someone else told them it was true. Monday morning arrived gray and cold. I was in my home office, a converted second bedroom with windows overlooking the park, when my phone started buzzing at 6 a.m. Mysio, it's live. Forbes just posted. My head of communications, holy shit Maya. Front page of their website. My oldest client, the CEO of a $2 billion SaaS company. Congrats on the Forbes cover. Well deserved. I pulled up the Forbes website on my laptop. There it was front and center. My face professionally lit wearing the navy blazer they'd selected. The headline read, Meet Forbes' most powerful entrepreneur under 40. How Maya Richardson built a $200 million consulting empire in silence. The article was extensive, 3,500 words detailing my journey from Northwestern dropout to sought-after consultant. They'd interviewed 12 of my clients, all of whom spoke on record about my impact on their companies. They'd analyzed my methodology, my growth strategy, my unique approach to market analysis. The numbers were all there. $200 million in total client value created. 83 employees across 7 countries. Active contracts with 23 Fortune 500 companies. A client retention rate of 96%. Average company growth of 340% within 18 months of engagement. She's the consultant that billionaires call when they're stuck, one CEO was quoted saying. Working with Maya isn't just about growth, it's about transformation. My phone continued buzzing. Congratulations from colleagues. Interview requests from CNBC, Bloomberg, and The Wall Street Journal. New client inquiries. Messages from former classmates who'd suddenly remembered we were friends. Nothing from my family. I worked through the morning, handling the surge of attention with my communications team. By noon, the Forbes article had been shared over 40,000 times on LinkedIn. By 2 p.m., I was trending on Twitter under hashtag Forbes Most Influential. My phone rang at 3:17 p.m. Emily. I let it go to voicemail. She called again immediately. Then David. Then Mom. Then Dad. I silenced my phone and went back to work. The messages started piling up. Emily, Maya, please call me. I need to talk to you about something important. David, is this Forbes article real? Call me immediately. Mom, honey, there's something on the news about you. I'm confused. Please call. Dad, we need to discuss this Forbes situation. At 5 p.m. my building's front desk called. Ms. Richardson, there are some people here to see you. They say they're your family. Tell them I'm unavailable. They're quite insistent, ma'am. I sighed. Send them up. 3 minutes later they were at my door, all 4 of them looking shell-shocked and uncertain in a way I'd never seen before. Maya, Mom started, her voice breaking slightly. We've been trying to reach you all day. I've been working. Working, Dad repeated, his usual authority missing from his tone. Maya, there's an article. Forbes. With your picture. I know. You know. Emily's voice went up an octave. You know. Maya, it says you run a $200 million consulting firm. $200 million in client value created, I corrected. The firm's actual valuation is different. They stared at me. David pulled out his phone, his hands shaking slightly. I've been getting calls all day. Everyone I know has seen this. My CEO sent it to the entire executive team. Maya, is this real? Yes. But how? Mom couldn't seem to finish the sentence. When did this happen? Over the past 10 years. The years you thought I was failing. Dad stepped forward, and for the first time in my adult life he looked uncertain. The article says you've worked with Google. With Amazon. With Microsoft. Among others. And you never told us? I tried. Multiple times. You didn't believe me. Emily's face crumpled. Maya, we had no idea. If we'd known. If you'd known what? You would have treated me differently? That's the problem, Emily. Your respect was conditional on external validation. That's not fair, David protested. You were so secretive. You never showed us anything concrete. I told you I had clients. I told you I had employees. I told you the business was growing. But because I didn't have a corporate job title and a corner office, you assumed I was failing. Mom reached out as if to touch my arm, then pulled back. Honey, we were worried about you. You have to understand from our perspective. From your perspective, I was a failure. I understand that. What you need to understand is that your perspective was wrong. The article says you're worth $127 million, Dad said, his voice flat. That can't be accurate. It's an estimate based on company valuation and equity. The actual number is higher, but I don't discuss personal finances publicly. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Emily spoke, her voice small. Why didn't you tell us? About Forbes, about the interview, about any of this? Because it wouldn't have mattered. If I'd told you I was being featured in Forbes, you would have assumed it was a small mention or that I was exaggerating. You wouldn't have believed me until you saw it yourselves. That's not true, Mom protested weakly. Isn't it? Yesterday, Dad called me arrogant for thinking I saw opportunities others didn't. You called my work little projects. David offered me an $85,000 job like it was a rescue mission. None of you believed I was successful until Forbes told you I was. David ran his hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration I recognized from childhood. Okay, you're right. We fucked up. We completely misjudged the situation. But Maya, you have to admit, you weren't exactly transparent. I was as transparent as you allowed me to be. Every time I tried to share my success, you dismissed it. So I stopped sharing. Dad finally sat down on my couch, looking older than I'd ever seen him. The article mentions a client who called you the most brilliant strategic mind in the industry. They quoted a Fortune 500 CEO saying you saved his company from bankruptcy. That was the e-commerce company I abandoned after 2 years. I didn't abandon it. I sold it to my client for $23 million. Mom gasped. $23 million? Yes. What did you do with the money? Invested it in commercial real estate and used the rest to scale my consulting firm. Emily was crying now, tears streaming down her face. Maya, I'm so sorry. We've been so terrible to you. You weren't terrible. You just didn't believe in me. It's the same thing. No, I said gently. It's not. You loved me. You wanted me to be safe and secure. You just couldn't imagine that I was building something bigger than you understood. Dad's phone rang. He glanced at it, then at me. It's my golf partner. He's calling about you. You should answer it. You'll be getting a lot of those calls. He declined it, setting the phone face down. Maya, I need you to understand something. When I said those things yesterday, when I said you were arrogant and unrealistic, I didn't know. I know you didn't. If I had known, I would have. What? Treated me differently? Dad, that's exactly my point. Your respect was conditional on success that you could measure and understand. My success didn't fit your metrics, so you dismissed it. That's not. He stopped, his face crumbling slightly. You're right. That's exactly what I did. Mom sat down beside him, her hands twisting in her lap. The article says you turned down a $50 million acquisition offer last year. Twice, actually. 2 different firms. Why? Because I'm not interested in selling. I like what I do. I like building something that matters. David was scrolling through his phone again, his face pale. Maya, you're trending on LinkedIn. Everyone in my industry is talking about you. My CEO just sent me a message asking if I can introduce him to you. What did you tell him? I haven't responded yet. I don't know what to say. Tell him the truth. Tell him you're my brother and you'll ask if I'm taking new clients. Are you? We have a wait list of 63 companies right now. But I can make exceptions for strategic partnerships. The room fell silent again except for the distant sound of traffic from the street below. Emily wiped her eyes. How do we fix this, Maya? How do we make this right? I don't know if you can, I said honestly. You spent 10 years telling me I was failing while I was building an empire. You cut me off financially yesterday while I was sitting on a 9-figure net worth. You offered me an $85,000 job while I was closing $47 million in contracts. We didn't know, Mom whispered. You didn't ask. There's a difference. Dad stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. I've spent my entire career teaching business management. I wrote a textbook on organizational leadership. And I couldn't see that my own daughter was one of the most successful consultants in the country. You saw what you expected to see. I saw what I wanted to see, he corrected. I wanted you to fail so I could be proven right about stability and traditional careers. I wanted you to come crawling back asking for help so I could feel needed. The admission hung in the air, raw and uncomfortable. I don't think that's entirely true, I said quietly. I think you genuinely believed you were protecting me. You just couldn't imagine a path to success that looked different from yours. Mom stood walking over to me. Can I hug you? I hesitated then nodded. She wrapped her arms around me and I felt her shaking with silent sobs. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I'm so incredibly sorry. I know, Mom. Emily joined us, then David, and suddenly I was in the center of a family embrace that felt both foreign and familiar. When they finally pulled away, Dad remained by the window, his back to us. Dad, I said softly. He turned and I was shocked to see tears on his face. I'm proud of you, Maya. I should have said that years ago, but I'm saying it now. I'm proud of who you are and what you've built. Thank you. But I'm also ashamed of myself. For not seeing it. For not believing in you. For making you feel like you had to hide your success from your own family. I didn't hide it. You just didn't see it. Because I chose not to see it, he said firmly. Because it challenged my worldview and my ego. And I'm sorry for that. David cleared his throat. So what happens now? Now. I shrugged. I keep working. You keep working. Life continues. But we're going to be different, Emily insisted. We're going to support you properly. We're going to. Emily, stop. I held up my hand. I don't need you to do anything differently. I don't need your support or validation. I needed it 10 years ago and you didn't give it. I built my success without it and I'm fine with that. But we're family, Mom protested. Yes, we are. And I love you all. But I also recognize that our relationship has been fundamentally broken for a long time. Forbes didn't fix that. It just made the break visible. So what are you saying? David asked. That you don't want us in your life? I'm saying that if we're going to have a relationship going forward, it needs to be built on who I actually am, not on external measures of success. You need to believe me when I tell you things about my life. You need to trust that I know what I'm doing even when it doesn't make sense to you. We can do that, Emily said quickly. Can you? Because yesterday you called my business little projects. Dad called me arrogant. Mom said I was wasting my potential. Can you really look at me now and see past the Forbes cover to the person who's been here all along? They looked at each other, uncertainty written across their faces. I don't know, Dad said finally, his honesty surprising me. But I want to try. That's all I can ask for. Mom checked her phone and gasped. Maya, you're on the evening news. They're doing a segment about you right now. She pulled up a live stream on her phone. Sure enough, there I was. My Forbes cover displayed prominently while a news anchor discussed the Chicago consultant taking Silicon Valley by storm. Maya Richardson has worked with over 23 Fortune 500 companies, the anchor was saying, yet remained virtually unknown outside elite business circles until today's Forbes revelation. Industry insiders call her the secret weapon behind some of tech's biggest success stories. The segment cut to an interview with one of my clients, a CEO I'd worked with for 3 years. Maya sees patterns others miss, he was saying. She transformed our company's trajectory completely. Working with her was the best business decision I've ever made. My family watched in silence, their faces reflecting a mix of awe, confusion, and something that might have been shame. When the segment ended, Emily was the first to speak. They called you the most influential consultant of your generation. That's hyperbolic, I said. I'm good at what I do, but I'm not the only one. Stop, David said firmly. Stop downplaying it. You're allowed to be proud of what you've accomplished. I am proud. I just don't need external validation to feel it. Dad's phone rang again. Then Mom's. Then Emily's and David's. You should all answer those, I said. People are going to want to talk to you. My communications team can provide you with talking points if you need them. Your communications team, Mom repeated wonderingly. You have a communications team. I have several teams. Communications, operations, client services, research and development, strategic partnerships. That's what happens when you run a company with 83 employees. 83 employees you said you had yesterday, Dad said slowly. And we laughed. I know. We laughed at the truth. Yes. He sat back down, his head in his hands. How do I apologize for that? How do I apologize for 10 years of not believing you? You just did. It's not enough. Maybe not. But it's a start. They left an hour later, still shell-shocked, still processing. I watched them go, feeling neither vindication nor satisfaction. Just a quiet recognition that everything had changed and nothing had changed. They believed me now because Forbes told them to. They respected me now because the world had validated what I'd been trying to tell them for a decade. Their apologies were sincere, but they were also conditional, contingent on proof they finally couldn't deny. I returned to my office and pulled up my calendar. Tomorrow I had calls with 3 potential clients, a strategy session with my leadership team, and a follow-up interview with Bloomberg. Next week I was speaking at a tech conference in San Francisco. The month after that I'd been invited to keynote at an international business summit in Singapore. My phone buzzed with a text from my COO. Guardian, BBC and NYE all want interviews. Also, someone from the White House's Economic Advisory Council called. I smiled and typed back, schedule them. And let's start vetting those 63 companies on the waitlist. Time to scale up. Another text came through, this time from an unknown number. Saw the Forbes cover. Always knew you'd make it big. Proud of you. Professor Chin. Professor Chin. My economics professor from Northwestern, the one who'd told me I was brilliant when I decided to leave school. The only person who'd believed in me when I was 20 and terrified. I texted back, thank you. Your class changed my life. Her response was immediate, no. Your courage changed your life. I just pointed you in the right direction. I looked out my window at the Chicago skyline, the setting sun painting the buildings gold and orange. Tomorrow my family would wake up to a world where everyone knew what I'd built. Their friends would ask questions. Their colleagues would want introductions. Their entire perception of me would be filtered through external validation. But I was the same person I'd been yesterday. The same person I'd been 10 years ago when I dropped out of Northwestern. The same person who'd been told she was failing while she was building an empire. The difference was that now the world could see what I'd always known. I wasn't playing entrepreneur. I was one. And I'd done it without their belief, without their support, without their validation. I'd done it because I believed in myself when no one else did. That was the only approval I'd ever needed. My phone buzzed one more time, a text from Dad. Your mother and I want to take you to dinner. A proper celebration. Your choice of restaurant. I looked at the message for a long moment, then typed back, let me check my schedule. I'll let you know. I didn't need their celebration. But maybe, just maybe, I could learn to accept it. On my terms. My time. With boundaries they would finally have to respect. The Forbes cover sat on my desk, my face staring back at me with quiet confidence. Most influential entrepreneur under 40. I'd known I was influential long before Forbes confirmed it. My family was just the last to find out.